oogenesis and plus ovarian development. So these two events will go hand in hand. The oogenesis as well as ovarian development will go hand in hand. So what do you mean by hand in hand? So when you observe the sectional view of the ovary, you see some parts here, right? So you see the peritoneum or the outer layer, the serosa, and you see this medulla region. So where the uh, ovarian cortex region, where you see this primary follicle and the follicles at various stages. So now the follicles basically follow this primary stage, and then they will go to secondary follicular stage, and then tertiary follicular stage, and finally they will reach the mature stage called Graafian follicle. So while these ovarian follicles are developing, so there is some other event which is going in hand, that is the egg mother cell or the oocyte will finally give rise to secondary oocyte, and when the Graafian follicle matures and after receiving a signal from the endocrine system, the Graafian follicle will now rupture to release the ovum, which is called as ovulation. And this ovulation will lead to formation of corpus luteum. The leftover part of Graafian follicle after ovulation is called corpus luteum, which is now going to function as an endocrine gland. So this functions as endocrine gland, which releases certain hormones called progesterone, estrogen, and inhibin. So these are various hormones which are released by your corpus luteum. So this is the overview of exact process that is happening. So let us talk about how exactly the things are going to operate in ovarian follicles and what happens to the primary oocyte and whatsoever. So talking about the oocytes, so during birth, so when the childbirth takes place, there are some thousands to several thousands, so several hundred thousands of uh, oocytes are present. So these oocytes, as the age increases and the female reaches the age of puberty, right, or after birth, the number of oocytes will really or will be reduced to some hundreds, and all these primary or all these oocytes will begin their meiosis stage and will be in a stage called primary oocyte. And this primary oocyte is a stage where it is actually arrested in meiosis 1. So it is arrested in meiosis 1, especially talking about the substage, they are arrested in prophase 1. So this will happen from birth till puberty. So from birth till puberty, right? So the primary follicles, whatever the primary follicles are there, so these follicular cells that are encasing this cell inside, which is called as a primary oocyte, which got arrested in meiosis 1 of and prophase 1 substage. So after puberty is attained, after female reaches the age of 13 or 14, there will be a surge in gonadotropin levels. There will be a surge in gonadotropin levels. So what are the gonadotropins? The gonadotropins are your FSH and LH. So this gonadotropin level raise, the raise in gonadotropins will now ask the follicles, right, to begin their development. So that's when the follicles, they will try or they'll start beginning their differentiation process, where they sequentially become secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, and Graafian follicle. And inside that, our primary oocyte will try to finish its meiosis. It will try to finish the meiosis. And once the meiosis 1 is over, right, and the 2 also begins, so you will get an unsymmetrical cells. So you will get a large secondary oocyte and a small polar body. You'll get a large secondary oocyte and a small polar body. And this polar body is the first polar body which either get degenerated in many cases right after its formation, or in certain cases it undergoes meiosis 2, finishes it off, and then degenerate. So there are two possibilities there, but there is an unsymmetric division which is leading to formation of a large secondary oocyte and a small first polar body. So this is the secondary oocyte that is formed. So now this secondary oocyte, will finish interkinesis. It will finish interkinesis. It will finish interkinesis, and it will reach metaphase 2. It will reach metaphase 2 and gets arrested in metaphase 2. So why is it getting arrested, and what is the exact mechanism of getting arrested? You will understand in higher classes, but I can simply say you that this metaphase arrest is to make sure that the anaphase promoting complex of the sperm helps in recovery or helps in completion of the meiosis cycle, right? So basically this secondary oocyte in metaphase 2 arrested state is the stage when ovulation happens, right? So this is the stage when the ovulation occurs, the egg will be in, right? So this is about the oogenesis. So now we got egg or ovum in its secondary oocyte stage, right? And this secondary oocyte stage is going to release, and it is gonna get collected in the fallopian tubules. So how is it going to happen? So when the oogenesis is finished, right? So once the oogenesis is over, whatever the ovum that is secreted here or released here is now going to get collected by the fimbriae. So these are the fimbriae, and this is the infundibulum, and this is the ampulla. So now they got collected, the ovum got collected, and now it is waiting. Who is waiting? The secondary oocyte in its metaphase 2 arrested site or stage is waiting in the ampulla region, right? It is waiting in the ampulla region for two possible events, right? One, yes, fertilization occurs. No, fertilization may not occur. So there are two probabilities of this egg. Either it can undergo fertilization or it may not undergo fertilization. So now let us discuss about that. After that we shall move on to the next discussion. Okay, so this is a rough flowchart of how exactly the development of oocyte is, right? So you can just see there are oogonia in the initial stages or the beginning stages of fetal life, and then you saw primary oocytes got when the birth took place, and this primary oocyte is going to divide once the puberty is reached, right? So it will complete its meiosis division and it will be in secondary oocyte. So like that, every 1 month, there will be one primary oocyte finishes its meiosis and release at secondary oocyte or ovum, right? And every month there is this egg staying in the fallopian tubules, right? So it is staying in the fallopian tubules like this. Right after puberty, every month one egg will wait for the sperm to come, but not every ovulation is followed by successful coitus. So that's why most of the ova are released in the form of menstrual, I mean, blood and all. So we will discuss about that once we start menstrual cycle, but this is how it goes, right? So there are around some 400 to 500 primary oocytes left after the birth took place. And until this 400 to 500 primary oocytes exhaust, every month there will be one cycle going on, which is called menstrual cycle, right? So it may begin in 13 or 14 year of the girl's life, and it may continue till 45 to 50 until they attain menopause. And at menopause, almost all the primary oocytes which were there after birth will get exhausted, right? So what are the concepts that are important for our exam? The concepts here that are important for exam are, first, the concepts like primary oocyte, secondary oocyte, and what is their chromosomal content, their ploidy, the chromosome number, and chromatid number. So these are the few things that are to be kept in mind for our exam point of view. Second thing, what are the different stages of primary follicle, secondary follicle, the follicular stages or the follicular developmental stages. So this follicular developmental stages are important because there are few questions which ask about in which stage of the Graafian follicle development or the follicular development ovulation occurs. It is the Graafian follicular stage. In which stage of follicular development you see or observe the special cavity called antrum. So it is from tertiary follicular stage. So like that, there are few questions regarding follicular development. And one more question which was asked in previous NEET and AIPMT are about these polar bodies. So when are these polar bodies formed? And again, the ploidy and DNA content, the ploidy and DNA content in these members, the primary and secondary polar body. The first polar body is haploid, obviously, but it has 2C content, the first polar body, whereas the second polar body, which is formed after fertilization or after completion of the meiosis 2, will have N, C, that is ploidy is haploid and number of chromosomes or the chromosomal content or the DNA content is single C, that is 1C content. All right, so this is about the oogenesis. So that's all about those things. Yeah, so like I said before, so we are going to talk about something called menstrual cycle. So now what is menstrual cycle? So it is a 28-day cycle that is operated every month, right? And this menstrual cycle can be divided into 3 phases. 1, bleeding phase. 2, follicular phase. And 3, luteal phase. Bleeding phase, follicular phase, and luteal phase. This goes for 1 to 5 days. This goes for next few days, right? It will continue till 13th to 14th day, right? And the rest of the 14 days are luteal phase. That is from 15th to 28th is luteal phase. So this is how it goes. So I told you already. So this is the fallopian tubule, and in this fallopian tubule, there is egg waiting in the ampulla region. There is egg waiting in the ampulla region. So there are 2 possibilities. Yes, fertilization may occur. No, fertilization may not occur. So irrespective of whether fertilization occurs or does not occur, the endometrium which is in the uterus should prepare itself for future probable pregnancy or future probable conception. So what exactly happens is after ovulation occur, the corpus luteum will release something called progesterone. It will release something called progesterone, right? So this progesterone will go to endometrium, right? So it will go to endometrium, and this endometrium will now gets built up in terms of its tissue and also in terms of the vasculature. So the vasculature and tissue will grow after the progesterone's action, thinking that there will be a probable conception and followed by pregnancy. And in order to prepare the endometrial wall and uterus, there are a lot of changes, the histological changes that happen in endometrium, right? So now, say for example, fertilization took place, great, there is pregnancy, and whatever the struggle that progesterone did was honored, and there will be implantation of blastocyst and all. What if there is no fertilization? If there is no fertilization, obviously the corpus luteum will slowly degenerate because there is no one to maintain corpus luteum. And this degeneration of corpus luteum will bring down the progesterone levels. It will bring down the progesterone levels, and this leads to the menstruation where the endometrial wall, right, by the contraction of myometrium, the built up tissue, whatever the tissue that was built up, right, so will be chopped off or will be sloughed off with along with the vasculature, which is called as menses. And because there is the menstrual discharge every month, this cycle is called as menstrual cycle. Okay, so there is a rough picture here you can look at, right? So this image shows us a overall view of how menstrual cycle is operated. So you can just see the ovarian events or the ovarian follicular development and the uterine cycle. So uterine cycle and ovarian cycle, both are two separate events, but these are interdependent, which control one another. So once upon a time, right, so when the woman reaches the puberty, the FSH level will trigger the follicle to develop. So now the primary follicle starts to develop, and once the Graafian follicle is formed, slowly the follicular cells start releasing estrogen, and there is a small spike of estrogen, and this estrogen spike, I'm representing it with other color. So this estrogen spike here will go and act on hypothalamus and ask, hey hypothalamus, release more and more gonadotropin releasing hormone, and this leads to LH release from pituitary. So this release of pituitary LH secretion will be high during the 13th or 14th day, which is called as the mid-cycle surge. And this mid-cycle surge is responsible for the luteinization of Graafian follicle, or simply the ovulation. And this ovulation results to two events. One event is the ovarian follicle releases the ovum, and that ovum will be reaching the ampulla region waiting for the probable fertilization. And the other event is the formation of corpus luteum, which starts releasing progesterone. So you can see the red line in the lower graph, the progesterone level increases right after ovulation. And now the progesterone will go and increase the wall of endometrium and vasculature in the endometrium. But if fertilization happens, everything is fine. But if fertilization does not happen, right, whatever the endometrial wall that is created here will be released in the form of menses, which marks the first phase, that is bleeding phase. So this cycle is operated here, and the type of questions that are asked are the hormones versus phases. So which hormones are active in which phase? Follicular phase, the gonadotropins will be high, whereas luteal phase, your estrogen and progesterone will take up the game, right? And the other thing is at which is responsible for ovulation, the mid-cycle surge, 2018 question, I guess, right? And who begins the thing? The FSH begins the thing, right? So these are few things which are to be remembered. So this is all about menstrual cycle. So now let us move on to our next discussion, that is fertilization. So fertilization is an event. As I mentioned already, fertilization is a broad term, right? It's a broad term which generally includes all the events that are taking place from right from the spermatogenesis and development of spermatozoa till the egg formation and whatsoever, right? So your egg has this plasma membrane. So this is the egg plasma membrane, and there is the nucleus. So this nucleus is haploid nucleus with double the content. So that is a secondary oocyte stage, and around this oocyte, there is a layer called as zona pellucida. So there is a layer called zona pellucida, and while ovum is released from the Graafian follicle, sometimes there are few cells which are still attached or still around the ovum. These are the follicular cells that remain around the ovum, right? This forms a crown. This forms a crown-like structure, which is called as corona radiata, right? So the corona radiata, and this is zona pellucida, and this is plasma membrane. So these are the three layers of the egg. Now, after a lot of struggle, there are several hundreds of sperms. So we have mentioned that there are some millions of sperms which are released in one insemination or in one ejaculation, but not all the sperms make into the fallopian tubes or towards the egg. There are only few hundreds of sperms which actually reach or which actually make it to reach the egg. And once the sperms reach the egg, there are few reactions that are going to take place. The very first reaction is your acrosomal reaction. Acrosomal reaction is nothing but, do you remember the acrosome, the one which is derived from Golgi apparatus? And I told you it is something which forms or which begins the whole fertilization event. So this acrosome is going to release the contents which has a lot of enzymes in it, which are released or are poured onto the zona pellucida. So now once the acrosomal reaction is over, immediately the egg responds and it triggers a reaction called cortical reaction, where lot of granules, where lot of vesicles which are filled with calcium and other contents will be thrown out of the plasma membrane, and this zona pellucida's morphology or this zona pellucida's composition changes and it becomes more and more rigid, and this cortical reaction happens so that there is prevention of polyspermy. There is prevention of polyspermy. So this polyspermy is prevented by cortical reaction, and then the male pronucleus will make its way into the egg, and once that event is over, the secondary oocyte will finish its meiosis, and finally there is this syngamy where the pronucleus of male and pronucleus of female fuse and finally forms the diploid zygote. The diploid zygote. For your reference, this is diagram which I was talking about. So this is ovum, this is plasma membrane, right? And there is a small space between plasma membrane and zona pellucida, the one which is represented in pink called previtelline space. And then there is the cells of corona radiata, right? So which are the ovarian follicular cells, which generally stick to zona pellucida during the time of ovulation. So this is how the ovum looks, and this is what I was talking about. There are several sperms which reach ovum, but not everyone make their way into the ovum. The only one sperm will make its way into the ovum. Of course, the molecular mechanism and the chemical dialogue between sperm and egg, you are going to study or explore it in higher studies, but that's all for our need. Okay, so after fertilization has taken place, there are few events that are going to happen, that is the cleavage events. So there are few cleavage events, right? So what are cleavage events? There is no growth. There is no growth, but only division. So, but division happens. So that's what, there is 2-cell stage, and then 4-cell stage, 8-cell stage, and there is a 16-cell stage called morula, right? And this morula stage, the egg will be somewhere in the isthmus, and finally further stages go on where it goes to 256 cell stage, and further it will go to a stage called blastocyst. So now if you look at blastocyst, you have two types of cells here, right? So the one which are outside or towards the exterior called as trophoblast cells, the ones which are involved in two functions: one, implantation; two, formation of placenta. So these are the things which trophoblast is for, and this is something called inner cell mass, which forms your embryo proper, that is whole organism or whole fellow, right? So the entire fetus develops from this inner cellular mass, whereas the trophoblast cells will take care of the process mentioned here. So talking about the implantation and other events, so let us discuss that in detail here. So what happens is, so when this egg or when this zygote got fertilized, the egg got fertilized. So slowly there will be these stages, the 2-cell stage, the 8-cell stage, so on. And it will reach this stage called blastocyst stage, where there are inner cell mass and all. So now assume that this is fallopian tubule and this is the endometrial wall. So this blastocyst will reach here. And in the stage 2, what happens is, this is the endometrial wall, right? And your blastocyst will make its way into the wall of endometrium like this, or it gets buried in the endometrial wall like this, which is called as implantation, right? So it is called as implantation, and this implantation marks an event called conception, and conception is nothing but the implantation followed by fetal development, which marks the pregnancy, right, in women. So this is how the events takes place after the fertilization is done, right? And after these events are over, there are further events which takes place, which are your placenta development and which are your fetal growth. So what is placenta? So in case of mammals, right, especially the eutherian mammals or the placental mammals, there is this extensive blood, vascular and nervous network that is formed in the endometrial wall, right? So which is termed as placenta, right? So let us talk more about placenta. So placenta is actually made by two members. One, the fetus will contribute some, and two, the mother will contribute some. So the maternal placenta and the fetal placenta. So the maternal placenta is something which is derived from the tissue, that is the uterine tissue, right? So which makes the chorionic villi. So whatever the chorionic villi, right, the chorionic villi, the finger-like projections that appear from your trophoblast cells, right? So will form a good networking with the the uterine body wall and forms a network called placenta. So now this placenta has various functions. This placenta performs excretion. This performs, it collects the excretory waste from the fetus. It can also contribute for gaseous transport. It is also a network which provides nutrition and all. So it performs almost all the functions which are necessary for keeping the fetus live, right? And this placenta, in addition to this, also has endocrine function, where it releases some principal hormones like HCG, the human chorionic gonadotropin, which is responsible for maintaining corpus luteum, right, throughout the pregnancy, so that the progesterone is released continuously. And it is also responsible for HPL, that is human placental lactogen. So this is generally helpful in maintaining the pregnancy, as well as it is also helpful in development of other mammary glands and so on. So this also is involved in the growth of uterus. The size of uterus increases drastically during pregnancy. So the somatomammotropin also helps in that, which is nothing but the HPL. In addition to that, estrogen and progesterone are also released by placenta, right? So 2018 NEET question, hormones released by placenta, right? This was one question among few questions asked from this chapter. All right, so this is something which are released from placenta. All right, so let us talk more about the developmental events. So once these events are done, once the implantation is successful, what happens next is the fetal development. So if you just look at, this is the placental network assume, right, in the endometrial wall. And from this endometrial wall, there is a cord called umbilical cord, right? So this umbilical cord will act as a tube that generally serves all the food and all whatever to the fetus, and slowly this fetus will grow. And the gestation period in case of humans is 9 months, which is divided into trimesters, the 1, 2, 3, the first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester. And during these stages, there are several events that are taking place, right? So initially, right, so during the first trimester or after fertilization, there is an event called gastrulation, and this gastrulation leads to formation of your three germ layers: ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Some AIPMT question: the sequence of formation of ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Yes, first forms the ectoderm, then endoderm, and finally the mesoderm. So this is the sequence: ecto, endo, meso, right? So this is the sequence how they are formed, right? So various germ layers, or the three germ layers, will give rise to different organs and organ systems. Say for example, ectoderm is involved in formation of your nervous system, endoderm is involved in formation of your gut and all, and mesoderm is involved in your bringing up your organs like heart, bones, and all the other connective tissues. So these are few examples that we can quote here. And in all the three trimesters, there are several changes that are happening, right? So in the end of first trimester, almost all organ formation will be done, and by the end of second month of pregnancy itself, the fetus will develop limbs and digits, right? So major organ systems are formed by first trimester itself, and external genitalia are also developed by them. And in the second trimester, there will be growth of these organs. And in the third trimester, the events like hair growth, neuronal development, all those things takes place in the third trimester. And once this development is over, then comes the event called parturition or childbirth, right? So there are few events that occur before parturition. So once the 9th month is over, or the gestation period is over, your placenta will stop synthesizing certain hormones, which go and ask corpus luteum enough of secretion of progesterone. So now, after the end of 9th month, the estrogen levels will start increasing, right? And this estrogen is going to do some things. So this estrogen is going to act on the hypothalamus and all, and it is going to ask hypothalamus to release certain hormones called oxytocin. So now this oxytocin will come and act on myometrium, and myometrium is ready to contract now. So this is one event on one side. There is another event where the ovaries will start releasing another hormone called relaxin, and this relaxin will does few functions, like one, the cervical dilation, which makes the cervix open, and secondly, it will go for the pubic muscle relaxation, or pubic muscles are generally regulated by this relaxin. And all these events, so the signals that are originated from the fully developed fetus, right? So the signals that are originated from fully developed fetus will now induce mild contractions in the myometrium. So on one hand, the fetus is ready to get ejected, right, in the from the uterus, right? So the myometrium is starting some contractions, and on the other side, the relaxin has dilated the cervix or the birth canal, and now the fetus is ready to move out, and these signals are called as fetal ejection reflex. These signals are called as fetal ejection reflex. So once the fetal ejection reflex is begin, right, then the other events takes place where the oxytocin levels further increases in the body, and the uterine muscle contraction increases, and then there is expulsion of the baby out of the uterus. And that's what is parturition all about. And once the parturition is over, there are some events that happen in case of the mammary epithelium or the mammary gland. So in mammary glands, the female shows a process called lactation. So where the milk production begins. So there are two hormones which are important here. So prolactin, which is responsible for secretion of milk, that is synthesis and secretion of milk in the alveoli, and oxytocin is responsible for ejection of milk from the mammary gland. So these are two hormones, and the milk that is produced in the initial stages after delivery is called as colostrum. Colostrum is rich in antibodies, several antibodies, right? So this colostrum is very important for development of resistance in newborn, right? There is a 2019 NEET question, colostrum is rich in which type of antibody? IgA. You can remember the one immunoglobulin that passes through placenta is IgG. So you can see like this. So G looks like a uterus and this is the baby, let us say. So IgG is through placenta, whereas IgA is through milk, A for ama, right? Colostrum, so mother's milk. So IgA is from colostrum, IgG is from placenta. 2018 NEET question, 2019 NEET question, very commonly asked questions, right? So placental transfer is IgG, colostrum transfer is IgA. So this is all about reproductive system or human reproduction. Once again, I would like to address few important concepts, right? Say for example, the male and female reproductive systems are very important, and commonly asked questions from this area are the part or cell versus function. So be thorough with all the parts of female and male reproductive systems and be thorough with what is their function. And second, be thorough with the process called spermatogenesis and oogenesis. And what are the different types of questions asked here? The type of questions asked here are first, problem solving, where they may give you some chromosome number and they may ask you what is the chromosome number in that stage and this stage. So this requires a good idea about the processes. And secondly, they may ask you the content in particular stage. Say for example, what is the content of DNA in first polar body, right? So the answer is it is haploid, 2C content. So like that, there are few questions in previous AIPMT. And the third type of questions that they ask is the correct statements and incorrect statements. Say for example, all the primary oocytes are arrested in prophase 1. Yes, it is a correct statement. All the secondary oocytes are in their metaphase 2 stage. Yes, it is correct. So like that, there are several questions which are asked in the exam. So correct statements or incorrect statements are common questions from this area. And third most important concept is your menstrual cycle. And I'm stressing it again and again. Menstrual cycle is very, very important in two chapters. One, your endocrine system. They may link the questions from here to your endocrine system. Say for example, LH and FSH action. What do they, where do they act on, or whom do they act on, and where are they released from, and after receiving which signal these are released. So these are few questions. And second most important thing regarding menstrual cycle is the events in menstrual cycle, right? So the follicular phase and what is the hormone which is active in such follicular stage and all. So these are the important questions and areas where the questions are asked. So please try to read them repeatedly so that you remember. So now it's open for doubts. Any doubts? Yeah, you can type your doubt so that I can read them. If that's the case, that's all. That's all for today's class. Yeah, Abhinesh Raghavan has a doubt. Yeah, there are doubts. Cervical dilation, role of inhibin, enzymes present in acrosome. Okay. Yeah, there are some couple of questions. Yeah, I will answer those. Info based on umbilical cord. Initial step in the activation of ovum during the process of fertilization. Relaxin is released by placenta or hypothalamus. So yeah, I'll answer these questions one after the other. So addressing the first question, what is the role of inhibin? This is asked by Harshavardhani. So the role of inhibin is to basically regulate. It's basically to regulate the release of gonadotropins from your pituitary and all. So there is feedback cycles which are operated always. So your inhibin basically goes and act on pituitary directly, and it will try to lower the levels of your follicle stimulating hormone and all. So this happens in the luteal phase. So in luteal phase, what did we say? Whatever the ovarian follicle is there, so that ovarian follicle will get ruptured, and it will lead to release of ovum. And after that event is over, we don't want gonadotropins in the blood. So that's why, in order to reduce the levels of LH and FSH, inhibin go and ask pituitary to stop the secretion. So that is the role of inhibin. So second question is, what type of enzymes present in acrosome? So mostly these are hydrolases. So that's the oversimplified answer that I can give. Right, so there are mostly hydrolases, which basically acts on what do you call the zona pellucida. Okay, so blastula and blastocyst, so there is no much differences there. So there is something called hatching of blastula and hatching of egg. So that's what, when there is this zona pellucida over that, in that trophoblast cells and inner cell mass, you call it as blastocyst. And once that hatching is over, you will get the blastula stage. Fine. So ploidy, someone asked ploidy, it's some RSS. Okay, I'll address ploidy again, don't worry. And can you discuss some neat questions on this paper, on this chapter? Yeah, I think I have given almost all questions which are asked in previous exams when I was discussing topic. So I think I have covered that part. Abhinesh Raghavan's doubt is, explain about cervical dilation. Okay, Abhinesh, it is quite simple. Basically, cervix is something which is the lower part of uterus. So now think of this, the central part of uterus or womb is carrying the baby, and cervix should be closed always so that the baby or the fetus do not get ejected out, right, which is called as miscarriage. So that shouldn't happen. So cervix should be strong and it should be closed. Okay, so when it comes to the time of fetal ejection, that is during the time of parturition, cervix should not be that much rigid. It must become a little elastic so that there will be opening of cervix and release of fetus from the uterus. So this is done by your relaxin, right? So that's what cervical dilation is. Okay. Yeah, Niroshini has asked me a doubt, is the role of LH and FSH differs in male and female? Yes, they do differ, but mostly it is a common function, that is these are gonadotropins and they act on gonads. FSH, for example, in case of males, it acts on Sertoli cells, whereas LH acts on your Leydig cells and release testosterone. So yes, mostly their function is similar, they act on gonads, but talking specifically, their effects are different. Yeah. So Harshavardhani's another doubt is relaxin is secreted by placenta or hypothalamus. I already told you relaxin is secreted by ovary, not placenta, neither placenta nor hypothalamus. Relaxin is released by ovaries. So how relaxin act upon it? Abhinesh Raghavan's doubt. I told you relaxin acts upon it by, of course, receptor and all. So the receptors that are present in the cervix, right, will take up the relaxin and there will be underlying events where there will be relaxation of cervical muscles. Fine. So the next doubt is, what is the initial step in activation of ovum during the process of fertilization? I think I have given you a clear idea. First, acrosomal reaction, and this acrosomal reaction will trigger the cortical reaction. Actually, there is something called the membrane potential changes. So there will be some ion influx and efflux, which creates the signal to begin the cortical reaction. Next, give some info based on umbilical cord. So basically, umbilical cord is a cord with lot of blood vessels and nerves which come from placenta. It acts as a medium. It acts as a tube which transports all the substances from placenta to here. And umbilical cord basically arises from the yolk sac, the extra embryonic layer. So that's all the information I can give for this level. That's all, Sweta. And another question from Angel, is it penetration of sperm in the egg or fertilizing or anti-fertilizing reaction? What is that? I didn't understand the question. Angel, if it is possible, please type the question again. I'll address it at the last. Is secondary oocyte in metaphase 2? Yes, it is arrested in metaphase 2. How? It is arrested in metaphase 2 because the anaphase promoting complex, or the MCDK, the mitotic cyclin dependent kinase, will be inactive in secondary oocyte stage, right? So this has some cell cycle significance, which will be understood in higher studies. So that's not required for us right now. Just remember that secondary oocyte is arrested in metaphase. Does zona pellucida have some pores for sperm to enter? Definitely no. No, Krishna, there are no such pores. There is only a chemical dialogue between sperm and the egg. So ovum will release some sort of chemicals to which the sperms respond, and sperms will release certain sort of chemicals to which the egg responds. Fine. So Rashiga asked me to teach oogenesis once again. That's not possible. I think you can go for the videos which are already available in Learnity, right? So you can just repeat the recorded video. How cortical reaction prevents polyspermy? Quite simple. Cortical reaction will changes the composition of zona pellucida. So that's how the zona pellucida will become more rigid and will not allow any other thing. So someone has an interesting doubt. Darshini. Yeah, Darshini, what is the role of thyroxine during pregnancy? Thyroid hormone is something which maintains the basal metabolic rate. So entire metabolism or complete body functioning, if you talk about, is under the control of thyroxine. And we spoke about this in endocrine system, that is thyroxine will generally have an impact on the reproductive system, that is the control of estrogen release, the regulation of the sex steroid levels. So that's how thyroxine is also connected to pregnancy. One, the basal metabolic rate, and two, the uh, control or regulation of hormonal release. Angel, is penetration of sperm in the egg the initial step in the activation of ovum, or is it fertilizing or anti-fertilizing reaction? So I think probably this is something which we do not have in our level, but still I'll tell you. So there is some reaction that happens between the egg and sperm first, and then happens the acrosomal reaction or whatever. So first happens the dialogue and then happens the fusion. So the another question by Harshavardhini, I guess. Yeah. What is meant by alecithal egg? So alecithal egg is about the egg which has negligible amount of yolk sac, right? So there are 4 extra embryonic germ layers called as allantois, amnion, chorion, yolk sac. So alecithal egg refers to a little or no yolk sac at all. Are there any diseases where 2 sperms enter pellucida? So you don't call it as disease. If polyspermy takes place unnaturally, then the zygote that is formed will not be viable. That will be the death of the zygote. It's as simple as that. If 2 sperms have successfully fertilized, then there is no chance that zygote is going to live. Percentage composition of maternal and fetal blood in placenta. Dharanishri. Percentage composition of maternal and fetal blood in placenta. It's not about fetal blood and maternal blood. It is about the tissue that is developed. I think I didn't get your doubt properly, Dharanishri. So please be more specific. Yeah, hope I have addressed almost all doubts which are typed here. Yeah, if there are, Charubala has a doubt. Okay. Okay, there are a few more doubts. Priyadarshika, is LH surge responsible for rupture of Graafian follicle? Absolutely yes. Ploidy spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Okay, so ploidy spermatogenesis and oogenesis means fine. The spermatogonia is diploid, primary spermatocyte is diploid, secondary spermatocyte is haploid, spermatid is haploid, spermatozoa is haploid. Oogenesis, oogonia are diploid, primary oocyte is diploid, secondary oocyte is haploid, egg is haploid. Difference between monozygotic twins and dizygotic twins. Okay, monozygotic twins are identical twins when there is single fertilization event, but while the cleavage events are happening, the zygote will split into 2 and implants independently. That is monozygotic twins, which are identical twins. Dizygotic twins are those twins which are resultant of 2 independent fertilization events, which means 2 eggs, 2 sperm, 2 zygotes, 2 fetus. That is dizygotic twins. These are non-identical or fraternal twins, they call it as. What do you mean by blastopore? So during development, there are several reactions that takes place, right? There are several events that take place. Say for example, invagination, evolution, right? So there are several events takes place. So while the gastrulation event is taking place, there is this invagination of the cells, which leads to formation of a cavity called blastocele and a small opening at that invagination, which is called as blastopore. So this blastopore will develop either into mouth or into anus. If it develops into mouth first, then you call it as protostomes. If it develops into anus, then you call such animals as deuterostomes. What is meant by ectopic pregnancy? Ectopic pregnancy is something when the implantation occurs not at the desired place, but places somewhere else. So Swati Rajesh explained fertilizing and anti-fertilizing reaction. So it is a chemical dialogue. There is a chemical released by ovum called fertilizin, and counter to it, the sperm has something called anti-fertilizin. So these both will talk to each other in the language of chemistry, right? And then that's what it is. CB has an interesting doubt as usual. Should we go beyond NCERT for this chapter for NEET? It's your wish, CB. I support sticking up to NCERT and learning some concepts broadly. But if you want to do extra reading, you are always welcome to do that. Gayatri K4, how can there be 2x? Yeah, there can be 2x in certain exclusive events, right? Say for example, when the luteinizing hormone levels are very, very high, right? So there are chances where instead of one Graafian follicle, 2 Graafian follicles can release eggs. So that's when 2 eggs are possible. Fertilizins are emitted by. Fertilizins are not emitted. Fertilizins are secreted by egg. Right? So, fine. Any other questions? Sir, how are non-identical twins possible, sir? Non-identical twins are possible when different independent fertilization reactions takes place. So, every ovulation will release one egg. So if instead of one egg, if more than one egg is released, then there is a possibility of formation of non-identical twins. CB, still no, I am going, still no. What is that? I didn't understand what you meant. At least write the sentence properly. Okay, any other doubts? Yeah, still now I am going only through NCERT. That's great, CB. Go for it. Do it. What is blastopore? Blastopore is an opening that is formed during invagination of embryonic cells in the embryonic stage, and this leads to formation of a cavity called blastocele, and that blastocele opens through that blastopore. What is the necessity of progesterone to be injected externally to a pregnant lady when she travels long distance? Oh, that's a great question, but I don't know. It's not about the progesterone injection only during the travels or something. It's about the levels of progesterone that are to be maintained in the body or in the blood. So the circulating levels of progesterone will decide the development of fetus, and hence probably Muruganandan, the progesterone is injected. What do you mean by meroblastic cleavage? Meroblastic cleavage is a type of cleavage in which few cells will cleave differently and few do not. So meroblastic cleavage is not seen in case of humans. Meroblastic cleavage is seen in other members like amphibians and all, right? So in case of humans, it is holoblastic cleavage. Okay. What is the use of polar body? Nothing. There is no use of polar body. It just degenerates. Sir, how is ovary connected to the pelvic wall and uterus? It is through some ligaments. There are several ligaments: the ovarian ligament, broad ligament, uterine ligament. What is capacitation? Yeah, capacitation is the molecular event that takes place in which the sperm gains the ability to swim. That is capacitation. So this happens in the female reproductive tract. Yeah, Charubala, what's your doubt? What is the use of polar body, you have asked? Yeah, there is no use of polar body. Polar body will degenerate. That's it. Acrosome reaction in sperm are triggered by whatever the chemical dialogue that happens between sperm and your ovum, right? So the chemical dialogues that happen first will lead to acrosome reaction. Role of chorionic villi. I already told you chorionic villi are the finger-like projections that arise from the trophoblast cells, and these are the ones which contribute to placenta formation from the fetus side. How many questions you can expect? You can expect some 4 to 5 questions from this chapter. All right, that's all for today's class. Thank you.